Hare Krishna and good evening. Welcome to a conversation with Govinda Das. Today, we'll be discussing on how Janaka Maharaj went about finding a suitable match for his most qualified daughter, Mother Sita. Every parent wishes that they find a worthy match or alliance for their daughter. Much like that, Janak Maharaj was also concerned that he should find an able life partner for his princess, Mother Sita. What was on his mind and how did it play out in the Swayamvar is what we're going to learn today as we get into a conversation with Govinda Das, a very respectful, respectable author and a thought leader. We would like to invite you also into this conversation. So please ask questions by tapping on the raise your hand icon, and we'll invite you into this conversation at the appropriate time. Thank you very much. And with these words, over to you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Deepakji, for inviting me to speak in this platform. And so today we are discussing on overqualified bride. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharane Nirvisheshanyavadi Paschatadeshatarane. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So Janak Maharaj, the involved party in this episode is Janak Maharaj, Vishwamitra Muni, Mother Sita herself, and Lord Ramachandra, and eventually Lord Ramachandra's family. The one of the contention where people talk about, generally you get to hear, oh, because the problem is my daughter is over ambitious because she's overqualified. Best would have been she would have kept simple so that the marriage would happen easily. Nowadays it is becoming less and less, but still even amongst the educated class you get to hear this. But the point is, there is a disconnection between education and educated. It is not because of the degree, because something else. As we discuss, it will come here, and therefore, Sita, if you see, was extremely qualified. To such an extent, she was qualified. Her Swayamvara. No, generally her Swayamvara is depicted almost like Draupadi's Swayamvar. Many people have come there, including Ravan, trying to lift the bow, and Ravan got insulted. Now, this is not in the Valmiki Ramayana. The story does not exist. The Swayamvar of Sita Mataji, Mother Sita, was organized in such a way it was a prolonged Swayamvar. Whenever you want to come, it was happening since some time. I don't know exactly how many years, but somebody could come alone, try the Shiva Dhanush, try to lift it, and if they were not able to lift, they would go away. Right, and that was not the only criteria that you become a power lifter to marry Sita. There was a significant understanding behind that bow. It is not simply valor exhibition. So therefore, when we study the marriage of Mother Sita, marriage of Krishna, there are different perspectives. There is a adhyatmic perspective, there is a political perspective, there is a family perspective and there is a personal perspective also, right? Even the ordinary marriage of this world, where ordinary man and woman marry, it is not simply an event. It is not simply two families coming together. It is not about two soulmates coming together. All these realities, each of the realities, whichever reality is the prominent reality, does not and should not disconnect other realities. It is the compatibility of many reality, right? So therefore, Sita marrying Sri Ram signifies many things: multidimensional reality, personal, familial, political, and spiritual. So therefore, why the Dhanusya was kept? What was the purpose of that Shiva Dhanusya? Was it a valor alone? A valor is the forefront reality. Anybody breaks the bow, he will get to marry Mother Sita. But the significance, the historical reality, the spiritual reality was, up until Lord Ram came, Shiva Dhanusya represented the destruction caused by Lord Shiva during the fiasco created by Daksha Prajapati. I'll give a little background. Daksha means one who has been ordained the responsibility of filling the universe with living entities. He represents productive side of the creation. And Daksha's daughter was married to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva represents the withdrawal. If you want to understand in simple example, the people who float the company out of sentiments, they want to maintain the company in whatever condition. Oh, because it's my grandfather started, we want to keep it, allow it to stay. Or people have old building, right, and they spend so much of money to maintain that building in the name of heritage. Even a heritage has a lifespan. Yes, recklessly it should not be destroyed before the lifespan, but you cannot maintain any structure beyond its lifespan. And therefore, when the Dwarka Leela was over, Krishna could have maintained, wow, so many people will come to see the heritage. Now, along with going back to his spiritual place, he basically pulled out the entire city of Dwarka, because the samhara, destruction, is very much integrated in creation. There is Srishti, Siti, and Pralay. Even if we take from a most materialistic perspective, uninhabited building, just to maintaining it because it was there, it is a dangerous thing. So what does Lord Shiva do? And he comes into the picture. A timely destruction is an important principle for proper legacy of the spirit of contributing to the growth of the world and the society. Right? So this Shiva Dhanusya, when was it there? When Lord Shiva destroyed the Daksha's Yagya. Daksha and Lord Shiva coming together at the same time. Construction and destruction at the same time does not happen. During the construction, the destruction does not come. During the destruction, construction does not come, but the construction, is there to maintain as much as possible. When the maintenance becomes difficult, then the principle of destruction comes. That is represented by Lord Shiva. Because Lord Shiva and Daksha came together simultaneously at the same time, it created a conflict. Right? And then Sati eventually quit her body, did not want to be connected to her father Daksha. She wanted to be connected to her husband Lord Shiva. And that is the time the Shiva Dhanusha came, which created a significant destruction. And some or other, I'll not get into the details of it, came that Shiva Dhanusha came to the place of Janaka Maharaj. Now you need a very powerful personality to diffuse Shiva Dhanusha and bring forth again more creative and maintenance energy. Right? And therefore it was impossible for anybody to break that Dhanusha. Only one who has the power to break that Dhanusha, so that the new Srishti, which is Yada Yadai Dharmasya Glani, whenever there is decline, the Lord comes as an avatara not to destroy but to transform. So please understand the significance of breaking that bow. Rama Dhanusha, Kodanda Rama, his Dhanusha is meant for profound maintenance and growth. Shiva Dhanusha is there to destroy the recklessness. The war, what does it do? It destroys the bad, but war cannot create good. To create good, you need more sattva and rajogun, and to destroy, you need more rajo and tamogun. Please understand, this is the most important understanding of breaking of the bow. You can't expect Ravan to break it. You can't expect Wali to break it. You can't expect Sugriv to break it. It has to be done by Avatara, who is Lord Narayan, and his counterpart Mother Sita. Right. So once that bow was broken, right, it was diffused by Lord Shiva and eventually diffused by Lord Ramachandra, and eventually when Parshuramji came, what does Parshuram represent? Even though he is Vishnu avatar, he represented more of a Rudra Tattva. More of a Rudra Tattva. He was, you know, equal to everybody in regards to giving punishment. Even Parshuram had to be diffused, even though he is the avatar of Lord Vishnu. Because therefore Lord Shiva is not always visible in the material manifestation. He comes only during destruction, and rest of the time he is God of the yogis. Om Namah Shivaya. Right? He withdraws. What a conscious involvement of Lord Shiva for the right purpose and conscious withdrawal for the right reason. So therefore this is the marriage of Lord Ram and Mother Sita. And therefore when you are such a bride who is so qualified, marrying her is the change of, it is a conclusion of an old era and coming of a new era. And therefore marriage, as I explained, marriage in this world would signify something much deeper. Now what marriage has happened? Marriage has become an event. And what is that event is focused on? The event is focused on, unfortunately, the most external things in regards to best of the food, in regards to best of the Sangeet, in regards to best of the VIPs coming there, in regards to entertaining people, by offering them limitless facilities. The marriage samskara has become an event. I remember somebody telling, somebody got married, and within, if not few months, but within 1 or 2 years, the marriage broke. And unfortunately, the superficial father was telling his daughter, at least we had such a great event of marriage. The purpose of marriage is not the marriage event itself. The purpose of that sanskara is to create an impact in such a way that the husband and wife continue to live a great, happy, and satisfied life. If the marriage becomes event centric and not the living journey centric of that marriage, you can imagine how much marriages will break. So it has lost its flavor, it has lost its substance, it has lost its essence. It's losing more and more. And therefore, it becomes very significant for us to understand the marriage of Mother Sita and Ram. Right? On a personal front, Mother Sita and Ram were extremely compatible. Valmiki Maharshi in his Ramayana beautifully explains they were like the veena and the string, they were like the wheel and the chariot, they were like the pan and the supari, the betel nut and the leaf. Right? So you cannot separate from each other. On a personal front, it was extremely compatible. So one of the core character of the marriage is personal compatibility. Like somebody had asked this question, when Ram already broke the bow and Sita came to offer him garland, he said, no, I don't decide, my parents will decide. So how do we connect this marriage to Shakuntala and Dushyanta? No, therefore we have to understand that marriage also. How Shakuntala was invited in the palace, it was not easy. There are many responsibilities. A personal front is a private front. Personally, when people like each other, nobody can stop their liking each other. It's a flow from the heart. And if there is a compatibility caused by intellectual reality also, it becomes much deeper. Right? So that is a personal front. Sita and Ram had a great compatibility. When Janaka Maharaj saw, and when he saw exhibited, he saw that Lord Ram broke the bow, he sighed a relief. Wow, ultimately somebody has come whom I would happily give my daughter without even breaking the bow, but he has fulfilled that also, because breaking of the bow has a higher principle from the deeper spiritual Avatara Tattva principle. And here from the personal principle also, Sita is likable, Ram is likable, and they are likable to each other. When Sita came to offer garland, Ram wanted to fulfill another compatibility within the liking of each other also. One of the interesting part, the ignorance of the modern person. There is so much of conflict in their understanding. When they talk about arranged marriage, they think that arranged marriage lacks relationship, and therefore they go to another extreme of getting married, love marriage, at the cost of breaking relationship. And the movies are there, the poems are there, the ek duje ke liye are there, right, where people are willing to die because their love is real. Nobody objects that. We showed here Sita and Ram were extremely romantic to each other. You can read in the Valmiki Ramayana. The personal compatibility was there. So when Ram stopped Mother Sita, he said, no, I only came here to break the bow because my Guru brought here marriage. No, he said, it's not. So when Ram told this, what do you think the response of Janak Maharaj. The response of Janak Maharaj was twofold simultaneously. Anxiety, oh my God, Ram is not offering garland. And at the same time, great happiness and confidence. Wow, he is the real person for my Sita, because he is integrating between my daughter's liking to Sita, he breaking the bone, inviting the family to come. And Vishwamitra Maharshi, he brought them together, he made Ram broke the bow, and immediately Janak Maharaj sent few representative on behalf of himself to invite Dasharath Maharaj for discussing the probability of Sita and Ram getting married. Just imagine. So then that time Vishwamitra Muni told those representatives, tell that it is not my conspiracy, it is not my organization, I have not planned for it. It's between the two families. Another interesting principle, however somebody is good at giving you guidance, the spiritual guidance or dharmic guidance, just like somebody comes to spirituality and you know them for 2 years and you start taking decision for their marriages at the cost of parents' zero involvement or undermining the parents' culture, undermining the girl's culture, undermining the background which they have come from, what does it do? It creates a lot of incompatibility. Because at the end of the day, a teacher or a counselor or a mentor, pushes them to get married, but if something goes wrong, does he take the responsibility on a financial front, giving shelter to them? He wants to many times just tick it, I got them married. I'm not saying everybody does that, but it happens like that. Therefore, the responsibility was not taken by Vishwamitra Muni. He only took the responsibility of facilitation. He could have told, he told Dasharath, hey, come on, if you don't send Ram, I will curse you. Right? Because there is a cause has to be established, dharma has to be established, the demons have to be killed. But when it came to marriage, he facilitated. That's a great thing to do for a Purohit. But he can't take the responsibility. He can't force the parent to tell them you have to obey whatever I say. So therefore consciously told, tell them I did not bring them here for this reason. So when they went and they invited Dasharath Maharaj came with his Purohit, and you should read that part. What is that part? The part of both families talking about their heritage, their connection to the family. What kind of family the Dasharatha's family had and what kind of family Janak Maharaj had. Right? Janaka is coming from Videha. Videha means the place where they are not attached to the body. And Lord Ram comes from Raghukula. Every member of Raghukula, is so great. Ram is identified with Raghu, not that Raghu is identified with Ram. Raghukul itna mahan tha, Bhagwan Ram, when he Sita in the Sita Pariksha issue, there Ram connects himself to Raghukul. It's important that people connect to their Kula not because of pride, because of gratitude and responsibility. No? Gratitude and responsibility. So he gave the list who comes from our family. Janak gave his background. So what happened? Another interesting point. A love affair has to have capacity to handle the lasting relationship. A girl falling in love with someone who doesn't have the capacity to handle her background, her expenses, what she needs. So the sentiments of love doesn't have the power to handle the resources and the capacity and capability. Imagine a girl is like a mother Ganga or a flowing river. She comes from a higher capacity. And the boy, his patra is like the small bucket. The bucket will be flown away because he cannot handle what she comes from, where she comes from. It's not her fault. Overqualification is not her fault. It is the underqualification of the boy because the bucket is very small. And therefore it is explained, however liberal any woman who can talk about, when it comes to getting married, it is a psychologically inbuilt system. It will always remain forever. The movie actresses in the movie, they may show valor in loving the son of a driver when she is the daughter of an industrialist. She can show affection for a son of a police constable when she is the daughter of a police commissioner, or she can show affection to a gunda when her father is a dig, and prove that love is much greater. It is one of the most humbug, hypocritical, unrealistic. It is not even kavya. It is not even kavya. Because you see, every film actress, most of the time, generally would want to marry either an industrialist, nowadays the very famous sports people, or somebody who is equally more qualified than them, making more money, right? Because it is but natural, a girl has to go to the higher level of reality so that her flow can be handled by the person who has got a better resources. Therefore, her overqualification is not her disqualification. Her overqualification makes it you have to struggle to get right person. थोड़ा पिताजी को struggle करना पड़ता है. Because of that, one should not make the girls less qualified. Rather, one should work hard to make boys also more and more qualified to handle such person, which is beneficial for them. So Lord Ram passed the test because he came from a great family. And similarly, Sita also came from a great family. There is a compatibility. So what happened? There was a personal compatibility, there was a family compatibility. And now, higher than that family compatibility, there is a royalty. Sita is not simply a great bride, overqualified bride. She is not simply liking Ram because there is intellectual, emotional, all kinds of cautious compatibility. She is getting into the family of Ram, who is Raghukula. There is a great responsibility. The responsibility of the queen is so great that sometimes she loses her personal life. So even that was proved, right? That was proved by the astrologers when they had come to Janaka Maharaj's place. This mother Sita speaks to Lord Ram when there was a debate between whether Sita should go to the forest or not, right? So that was also compatible. Where was it compatible? Where she proved her compatibility, two places she proves her compatibility. The first is when Lord Ram had to go to the forest. For what? It was not simply the family, because Kaikai said, and therefore, and Dasharath Maharaj said, no, no, don't go, please, I can't stay without you. It was not simply Kaikai was involved. Yes, from the story, the human perspective, Kaikai is the villain. But there was a higher purpose also. Lord Ram was not supposed to stay in Ayodhya. He had come for the cause of the Devatas, to establish good governance. I was just listening to somebody, he was in the border place to create roads, working for the government of India. Some Ora. deeper core, I think. And he was talking about one lady lost her son, right? Lost her son because building roads on the border town is not easy, because there will be, the enemies trying to create a hurdle by recklessly shooting. So one of the son died, and this man, he was the in charge, he came and talked to her, sister, don't worry, I'm there for your other younger son. मैं उसके लिए मैं बहुत बड़े बड़े लोग को जानता हूँ, I know big big people in the private sector, मैं उसके लिए I'll get a job for him. He was giving, and she looked at him. She said, if that is what you want to do for my son, she said, one son, he died for the sake of this country, and have a second son, if there is a need for him. This is what he is hearing. He was crying telling that story. He said, I would want to offer my second son also, if there is a need. He said, don't give him a private job, take him for the same place where my other son worked. And he started crying, and then he said, mother, if there is a life for me again, I would want to be born in such a womb so that I can dedicate. So what is it? The personal great relationship, qualified, therefore he got a job, but there is another higher principle: sacrifice, dedication, responsibility. And this aura, beautiful talk. Then he mentioned how the spirit of the Bharatiya psychology is different. And I said, it is not that we are affected because we live in India. We are not affected positively because we live in India, because India lives in us. India lives in us. Wow, such a great concept. So similarly for Ram, it was not that he was living as the descendant of Raghukula, but the spirit of Raghukula was residing in him. Same thing with Janki. She said, I am coming with you. Whatever happens, it doesn't matter to me. I am there with you to the forest. In good times or bad times, on behalf of you as my husband, on behalf of your family's decision, I will come. And this is not spoken, but that's a reality, on behalf of the need of the society. Because unless Sita is kidnapped, Ravan will not be killed. So without Sita going there, the purpose of Lord Ram will not be completed. And she had to play that such a difficult role, and that is expressed in the Aranya Kanda, when Agastya Rishi, sorry, our Agastya Rishi basically sends Lord Ramachandra and Mother Sita, knowing very well this is the place where we will be separated in Panchavati. People say, oh, Ram abandoned Mother Sita. We'll come to that, right? So what happened? From the perspective of her Kula, from her personal perspective, for her familial perspective, there is a compatibility at all stages. When Lord Ram, when Mother Sita came back, she was pregnant. Lord Ram was coronated before that. And then unfortunately, the citizens, if you want to know the greatest villain in a human existence, it is not the king. It is not a bad politician. It is the citizens who have, greater expectation. They are cruel to the good people, the good ruler. But the dumb, useless people who are always traveling for a trip and come back to the parliament just to bark like a dog, they don't have any challenges to them, right? So Ayodhya's citizen, when Lord Ram had proved the purity of Mother Sita, not for him, for the citizens all over. Right, after doing all that, and people knew the story of Ram Rav's exploits in Ayodhya, they knew everything. But what would they say? They said our Ram is great, he did build a bridge, he killed Ravan, he made friendship with Sugriv, he killed Wali, he had great servant like Hanumanji. But you know what? How could he take back Mother Sita, who stayed in somebody else's house? And where they were discussing? Not in one place, everywhere. As a king, our modern politicians shamelessly, they try to do everything to hide their children's problem. If it is power, they will sell the country also. It is not a conscious desire to sell the country, but the obsession to power makes them consciously or unconsciously to compromise the national security also. Right? But here Ram, when he heard that, you can imagine what he must have gone through. Just like he was representing Raghukula, he was forced to represent the citizen. Even the great Sri Ram had failed to satisfy millions in regards to Sita being sent to the forest. Right? Today, everybody questions how can you do like that? But during his time, the present people are questioning him for sending Mother Sita, but during his time, the same amount of people question keeping Sita in the citizen. So, how in the world a king can satisfy grumbling citizens, the present or the future? Huh? But still, because that was the present then, today's present is different from the present then. So what Lord Ram had to do? For a time being, he had to send her to the forest and giving unequivocal instruction to Lakshman, don't ask any question about this. No question will be entertained. Send her to Valmiki Maharshi's ashram. She wanted to go there. Indefinitely, not eternally, not forever. Read carefully. He didn't know when she could come back. She was not banished forever, neither she was banished, she was sent to the ashram of Valmiki Maharshi. And when Lakshman is coming back after leaving Sita, his outburst is unbearable. He's angry with his brother. He said, how could he do this? He's asking this to Sumantara. And Sumantara tells him some stories which are important stories, but people don't listen to those stories. Why Ram and Sita had to be separated from a adhyatmic perspective? What caused that to happen? I have a book written called as Real Side. There we have dealt with all these controversial stories. Sita's so-called banishment. Right? So the point is, before he left Sita and gave her the message, she broke down on a personal front. That was a great loss, because Lord Ram was her heartbeat. He was the string of her veena. He was the wheel of her chariot. He was that betel nut of her pan. Right? He was her very essence, and without that essence she would not survive. But what does Mother Sita do? As a queen, she became higher than being a wife. She told Lord Ram through Lakshman, crying tears in personal separation, hopelessness, nothing there to look forward without Ram. But she said, my dear Lakshman, tell your Raghunath not to be angry with the citizens. I stand by for his decision, because that is the need of the citizen. I stand by him. And if that is what makes the citizen respect Lord Ram so that Lord Ram can rule properly for the sake of the citizen, let that be the reality. How can anybody question such credible, incredible consciousness of Mother Sita from every front? How is it possible? You know, the left, the communist, the stupid, you know, their arrogance of their ignorance is so high, they become fake activists without contributing even a penny to the cause of underprivileged. The so-called young social science people, recently I read somewhere, very amazing philosopher, he said, what is something against education? He said, against education is not no education, against education is social science. Where these oak principles come, breaking your own personal substance also, breaking your family substance also, breaking your responsibility to the state also, breaking your connection to the spiritual, that essence also. You have no connection anywhere, but you have arrogance to say that we are thinking about doing something good to the society. अपने कपड़ों को घर पे वो लोग अपने बिस्तर से उठाकर डस्टबिन में भी नहीं, बिन में भी नहीं डालते जहां उनका नौकर आकर साफ करने के लिए, राइट? एंड दे हैव द ऑडेसिटी, height of stupidity to question something which is so profound story, even if you don't accept it as the truth. But see the story of Lord Ram, Mother Sita's confidence, crying but confident, right? So from every level she was such a overqualified bride, and only Lord Ram had the power to handle that fire, and she had the courage to digest. Ram is like something, when you have some great fire, then only when you put in that fire ahuti, grain, wood, cow dung, whatever you put, the fire has to have the power to consume. If the fire is not so great, if you just add even ghee, the fire dies down. The ghee is still there, not burning. So that Sita is like that fire, had the power to consume and burn to ashes the difficult instruction of Lord Ram. And through that came the great Lavakush, who narrated this story so beautifully. And eventually that Mother Sita, because there is a limitation how much you can handle. Even though she is goddess of fortune, she said enough of it now. And therefore she concluded her stay in this world, her pastime in this world, right? And she asked Mother Bhumi to make her conclude her role in this world. And then there are stupid people without showing all the story. Oh, देखो सीता ने आत्महत्या कर लिया. क्या perversion है. If our education system is creating such a pervert people, they have the audacity to judge where they themselves are very suicidal and murderous. So therefore it is the responsibility for us to understand what this marriage is all about and implement some aspect, take that fire to try to make it compatible in regards to personal compatibility, family compatibility, society compatibility, and compatibility if you are a leader, to become compatible in regards to contributing to the growth of society. Therefore, we are fortunate enough that Valmiki Maharshi has given us this deep and profound story of pleasurable pastime of Mother Sita's marriage and the journey of their marriage, And the conclusion of the arrangement, to such an extent, Lord Ram, after the departure of Mother Sita, he made a golden statue, only personality in the entire creation, who worshipped Mother Sita in the form of her deity to prove it was a great successful marriage which created a legacy of great governance and devotion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. A very beautiful narration of how their lordships demonstrated the culture of getting married and staying married. We request participants to please ask questions by tapping on the raise your hand icon, which is at the bottom. We have a question by Harsh. Harshji. Harshji, can you please ask your question?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class. I just have one comment, which is very straightforward, and a question. The comment is, I actually have this example where the girl was IIT and everything, and her father actually spent 5 years in searching the boy, scanned around 50,000, 5,000 horoscopes, learned horoscopes himself, and then the girl said, my father has found a god for me. So that's one thing which actually stresses that we need to put more effort. And the question is that we in this world we have been focusing on the masculine part of divinity generally. So we focus on Arjuna, we focus on Rama, we focus on these sort of the masculine part where they have overcome the obstacles. But however, when I see this episode of especially Sita and Ram discussing the separation, that how should we separate? Should we separate or should we leave the kingdom? And then finally she decided to leave the kingdom with their approval. There is a feminine part of the God, which is not discussed. The masculine part. I would just like to know why this has happened, because this leads to lots of things. Because Ram represents valor, Ram represents strength, and we discuss all male gods generally, and somehow the feminine aspect of the masculine of the jiva maybe is negative.
Therefore, again, if you study the Shastra properly, and if you study the history, Rama and Mahabharata properly, and you just read the conversation of Draupadi with Yudhishthira Maharaj, read the conversation of Mother Sita to Lord Ramachandra, read the conversation of Kunti to Krishna, giving, what what Yudhishthira Maharaj should do. So there is I was talking to somebody, the marriage, the marriage the the masculine part, the gender discrimination or gender separation only happens on the biological front, man and a woman. But psychologically, on the mental, intellectual, and emotional platform, man, buddhi, ahankar, there is no description of gender. It is only description of character. And therefore, Chanakya, for that matter, an interesting verse he speaks. He explains, if I have that verse, it is explained that a woman basically is what 2 to 4 times more valorous than a man, right? Sahasi hoti hai. He says, yeah, boldness, courage 6 times. When I speak, I used to tell this to the children in the school, how is it possible? Then it is explained that the courage what women exhibits, not the courage of bungee jumping, courage of horse riding, that is depending upon feminine quality. Even many men don't know how to do horse riding. Many men do not know how to ride bicycle also. What to speak? I know so many men who don't know how to ride bicycle. So they are exhibiting feminine energy, which is creative, which is refined, which is soft, which is more of forgiving, right? But if you read the Shastra very clearly, the masculine energy, I was telling somebody, when you see Bharatnatyam and a Kalari Paitu has a feminine energy in the background. and Bharatnatyam has masculine energy in the background. A Kalari Paita is a, so therefore when you say oh, Bharatnatyam what? No, the same energy is required. But the Kalari Paitu is aggressively masculine in the forefront but having the feminine energy. And Bharatnatyam is aggressively masculine in the background but very refined in the forefront. And therefore it is wrong to say that our Shastras, Shakti, something which Lord Vishnu also cannot do, Rakta Bijasur, and Shakti and Shaktiman, without that they don't function only. But because we have become so focused on this Abrahamic concept of God, where it's purely masculine to the extent where the women do not have a role only. Similarly, the Kauravas, you don't even read who are the wives of Duryodhan, Karna's wife. In the regular episodes where people talk of, they give different names. But Pandavas gave full role for the women, Kauravas did not give, other than Gandhari. So it is not, our scripture are full of this kind of realities.
No, Prabhuji, I was asking, as you
Can I
said,
take some other question if people have?
Yeah, thank you. Puniji, can you please ask your question?
Hare Krishna Govind Prabhu, thank you for a wonderful session. Prabhu, I had a question. You made a comment about that the devotees in Ayodhya, their gossips resulted in separation of Lord Ram and Mother Sita. So I wanted to ask, how is it that these residents of Ayodhya who have the great fortune of living in an Ayodhya in the presence of Lord Ram and Mother Sita indulge in such gossips that it will lead to separation of Lord Ram and Sita Prabhu? And how are these devotees different than like someone like me who lives in Kali Yuga and has the same mentality?
Therefore, overemphasize of, oh, everybody is good every time in the Satya Yuga doesn't work like that. The good side and the bad side will always exist. So therefore, Valmiki Maharshi does bring out the human side of Ayodhya Vasis, at least for circumstantial situation. They did not lack the appreciation of Lord Ram, but along with that appreciation, they brought this element of questioning how could Lord be doing this. They didn't realize what they were doing. Sometime again we should not get into oh, they were pure devotees, why they behaved. Listen to Valmiki Maharshi's story as it is, so that what we can learn from this. Eventually everybody went back, but the point is, before going back, how much pain they caused to the cities, to Lord Ram and Sita. But Ram Sita did not take it as, array, what the hell are these people are doing? Hell with this people. No, they continue to perform their duty as a great king so that they can contribute and change. Eventually they changed, that is most important, but it was too late. Meanwhile, Mother Sita had gone back. So therefore, what do we learn? We learn in Ramayana, even Sita questioned Lakshman's character. Even Lakshman chastised Mother Sita. Because when you are in this world, you do exhibit human qualities, right? But that does not make them less divine. So we should understand that as a sadhaka, they are exhibited as a so that we can learn. And from a divine perspective, it's a story, it's a pastime for us to be absorbed also. Therefore I said there is a spiritual perspective, there is a devata perspective, and then there is a, the perspective of human perspective. So we have to see the story from a human perspective and see how the citizens were responsible in playing around with this story and caused such a pain. And of course Madhvacharya explains it was not all the citizens. There were a group of Rakshasas who had taken certain benediction from Lord Brahma. They wanted mukti without any qualification, and Brahmaji said, okay, no problem, but only one thing, if you separate Lakshmi Narayan, you will not get mukti. So these Rakshasa had come there in the guise of citizen. One explanation is given, but I would say, this is the story where human frailty does come into picture, but that is not their ultimate character.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, just an extension to that question. There's a lot of talk in India going on saying the freedom of speech is being curtailed. But what we saw in the Ramayana episode is that the citizens were able to express themselves. Can you just throw some light on this aspect?
Again, that is this whole concept of freedom expression is curtailed, freedom of expression is curtailed. There are hundreds of stories what happened during Jawaharlal Nehru's prime ministership, that they don't talk. So the whole, that's what I said. This the again I was reading this. He said the academia looks for paper being approved by consensus. And somebody said, this is not science, this is not education, this is academia. Academia looks for approval. And if you are not approved based upon their idea, then you will be disapproved, you will not be given degree. Right? But the science stands out of this whole thing. Because for a group you need consensus, and for a truth you need discovery. Very interesting and very important point. So therefore, this is a talk. Oh, there is curtailing of freedom of speech. Who is speaking it? The people who actually control all systems and never give anybody any chance to, perform anything out of uh, with the freedom. If you speak in certain parties, if you speak against their leaders, you'll be kicked out. Right? So therefore, the traditional India had a much more transparent compared to the so-called free modern India or America anywhere. Where recently in America, a Democrat candidate in New Jersey had the audacity to say, education is not the business of the family, it is the business of the state. And New Jersey is a stronghold of Democrats. They lost the election because of such statement. So therefore, the socialism and the communism, what does it do? It controls your thought process. And capitalism, in the name of giving you freedom, makes you a consumer. Only dharmic principle gives you pure freedom, which is responsible, like Lord Ram gave to his citizen, hoping them to change eventually, and they transformed also eventually.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Harishi, can you please ask your question? Can we ask a
Hare
request?
Krishna, Guruji.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I got the answer from that previous question when Govinda was answered. And thank you so much for the.
thank you. I'm not able to identify the name of the person. The initials are SM. Can you please ask your question?
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In your talk, you mentioned about compatibility between the boy and the girl. So, if the boy and the girl find themselves compatible, but the girl is older than the boy, then would such marriage be appropriate?
Yes, now this is very sensitive question. Again, if you ask this question again, we have to see from many perspective. If the girl and boy, there is a gap of very small year, no.
1 year
See,
gap, Prabhu.
yeah,
One
that's
year.
what I'm saying. I'm saying, I can tell you about many years gap also. There are many stories. So when people may tell them, okay, these are the realities, but they are strongly giving their reason and logic why they want to go ahead, then it is the responsibility of the family and others to support them to see that they stay together, work together, because they're trying to do something which is difficult one. When there is a biologically, when a girl is older than a boy, The girls become mature intellectually, emotionally, biologically much before the boys. If you see very clearly, when the 7th standard boys and 7th standard girls, there is a big gap between their understanding, their maturity. So therefore it's a deep science. But when people are in love with each other and they're very strong about it, then it is the responsibility of those who are very close to them, support them rather than squash them, condemn them, criticize them, and then try to make them break the marriage. Recently, still happens like that somewhere in Maharashtra. A girl fell in love, she got married, and the girl's brother and mother, they came to her place, they cheated her and they slaughtered her. This happened just few days back. Now what did they gain out of this? What is their so honor in this, killing their daughter, right? So therefore, yes, discussion, debate, and after that, if they choose, no daddy, no, no, we want to go ahead, so then the responsibility of the family is to support them and pray that they do prove, uh, you know they are able to move on with their life, no, even though it is not a pattern. So therefore Vedic literature have the power to give systems. These are the system you should follow. And if people don't want to follow this system, then the Vedas don't condemn them and ostracize them or kill them. They said, okay, you want to do something impossible, we will try our best to support. No? So therefore, after trying everything, if they still want to move ahead, they should be supported.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we are seeing increasingly a lot of girls, are seeking a lot of qualification, and marriages are happening late. They take a lot of time to decide, who the right partner is. Is he qualified enough? Is he worthy enough? Because of which marriages are getting delayed. What are your thoughts about it, Prabhuji?
Therefore it is, like it is the parents who are focusing so much on their profession at the cost of their social growth, their sensitivity in regards to their emotional, their compatibility of, friends or would be husband or would be wife. So when there is a isolated focus, the point is they can be married and also still grow professionally at the right time. According to the astrological chart, it is explained, again, this is a rule, and there are exception to rule. The planet which controls the pleasure of marriage, he becomes mature at the age of 28, because that is the right time to experience all this thing. When that doesn't happen, for whatever reason, again, we don't condemn, we understand how the modern society is functioning. So therefore those who understand the psychology properly, they should be sensitive without condemning the trend, and slowly explain properly with proper psychological, biological statistic, spiritual statistic, to help, because it is not their fault, they are supported to be like that. No, in fact they are encouraged to be like that. But only when they become 30, 40, they realize, oh my god, it's such a difficult and challenging one. So therefore early marriage or late marriage, that is not important. It's a compatible marriage. So compatibility marriage has to be seen from, as they start developing those emotions, right? So otherwise it creates lot of problem in the future. It is not about what I believe, what you believe. It is based upon certain psychological, biological, the planetary systems, everything is there. We deal with so many people like that, right? So therefore, yes, it's a problem. But again, we should not go and speak, slanderously. Oh, all the girls who are getting married so late, they're stupid, they're idiot, they're this and that, or boys are doing what obnoxious. You can't do that, because If you go and tell abruptly your logic, but they have been trained in a different logics. It requires a proper education. So therefore, dealing this issue very sensitively with great compassion, and if they choose to do something, no, I don't want to, then still not cutting relationship with them, because eventually they'll have to come back to their family, their friends, for making certain decisions which are not productive in the future.
Thank you very much. Ishaji, can you please ask your question?
Prabhuji, so we say that compatibility is what we need to see in a relationship, but compatibility is a subjective term. So can you explain
I
this
can't hear
in
you.
little more detail? So my question is that compatibility is a subjective term. Can you explain this in more detail?
As I said, compatibility is a personal, when you like somebody, it's a subjective reality. When your family likes, it's a combination of subjective and objective reality. When you have a greater position in your place, like just reflect upon what the story we talked about Sita. There is a personal compatibility also. There is liking for each other. Sometimes family compatibility is there, but the boy and girl there is no compatibility, right? Zero compatibility. So then what the girl and boy should do, the parents should not, cannot force them, oh no no, we are compatible in regards to our wealth, in regards to our social structure, you just get married. In the modern world it doesn't work like that. So therefore compatibility concept has become more challenging, more dynamic, more abstract rather than concrete, right? So therefore again, it is a tragedy that our education system does not deal with this relationship realities. They are only dealing with concrete 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 reality. Mathematics is not like that, biology is not like that. Social science is all about, they're not talking psychology, because psychology is extremely abstract science. There is no black and white in social science or psychology. So therefore one has to come back to shastras, which are not again narrated only from the story leela or from fascinating stories perspective, because the shastras also have emotional, intellectual, social, personal, spiritual, all concepts are there. So therefore what does scripture say, what does Gita say? What lacks is education. If you have an education, if not for you, if you made a mistake, at least for your children you give that education from being, so that they can experience life better than what you experience, and try to regroup yourself to grow in life.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Can we take one last question, Prabhuji?
Yeah,
Yeah, Abhishek ji, can you please ask your question? Abhishek ji?
I think it's not there.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danda Pranam. Actually, I have two questions to ask. First one is that you were telling that if girl is like a river, then boy has to be that much capability that he can hold her. But if that girl is though like a river, but she wants to adjust herself as per the compatibility of a boy. On that case, what to do. And second is that in present society the intercaste marriages are being avoided by the parents. On that time, what should one do?
Intercaste marriages are,
Are
what is that?
that intercaste marriage are not being supported by the parents, but both girls and boys are the but both boy and girls are devotees.
So the first thing is, it is not again the sentiment. Just like when you go to the market to buy even a lemon, we grew up, and now also people, at least the older generation, they do bargain, quality wise, the skin, how much, how thick it is, how soft it is, what quality, where to buy, and then bargain about it, just to make pickle also. If you want to make puran poli, you need to know what kind of wheat, not any wheat. So they, before the preparation is more, there was a bargain, research to make a puran puri also, to make a nice rice, pulav rice, a masala bhat. They had to have a separate kind of rice, right? You just try cooking khichdi in a cooker, same ingredient, cook that khichdi in a pot, and same khichdi cook in the wooden fire along with the clay pot. You will experience different flavor. But nowadays people don't have the taste bud also. They will not be able to distinguish between the wood, the cooker and the pot, because our senses have become so dull and desensitized. But the impact is there to the body eventually, what kind of food you are eating. So therefore the point is, when emotionally she may say, I will adjust, it's a simple thing. A a girl who is from purely South India, not a South Indian girl raised in Mumbai, and a Punjabi boy raised in Mumbai, and then there is a greater chances of compatibility because their whole culture has changed. But purely somebody is grown up in Kerala and somebody is raised in Punjab all the time, she may say, because we met and they meet in the IT industry, in some other industry, they fall in love with each other and they marry. Both have families, and the girl, for her to adjust, with the food, beginning with the food, and if she has to ship to Punjab, the weather, it is not easy for her to adjust. It becomes an extremely extra challenges along with the psychological reality. If they're in the city, there is such a confusion, so that confusion allows them to stay together for at least, play around with their marriage, move on with their life. Two states, right? It's not easy, only because they are, lived in a city. So therefore one has to see, therefore marriage is not decided by the society. Society is there, marriage is decided by your psychological, her psychological reality, and then that all other aspects of everything comes. So therefore, if an accident marriage happens, just like buying a lottery ticket, what is the probability of buying a lottery ticket and you winning the prize? Very rare, right? And you can tear off the lottery ticket which you don't win. But here, even if you break the marriage, divorce bhi ho gaya, but the problem of dealing with the emotional problem is very great. So therefore, let us understand, okay, these are the realities are happening, and what to do. So therefore every family has to take greater responsibility to train themselves, train their children in this aspect also as early as possible. Discussing this, interaction, people, children want to discuss any subject, but you should have a time to discuss. And if you don't do, it's buying a lottery ticket. If you win it, that is very rare, and losing is much greater. So we'll stop here and
Thank
meet
you.
next week.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for bringing. We meet next Tuesday to celebrate Gita Jayanti with Prabhuji. And in case you want to learn and understand Bhagavad Gita in essence, in summary, Prabhuji will be conducting a workshop starting Sunday, that's 12th of December, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that's 12th, 13th, and 14th of December. Uh, it's on Zoom. It's a little early in the morning at 7:15 a.m. because we are trying to cater to the US audience also. So we will be sharing details on Telegram. So please feel free to join in. Till then, Hare Krishna.